Money Mark, all the people here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Our guest is Ha-Joon Chang. He is a world-renowned economist, wrote Bad Samaritans, The Myth of Free Trade and the Secret History of Capitalism. I wanted to ask you about the Obama administration's response to the financial crisis. This is President Obama speaking Friday in Columbus, Ohio.
Now, there were those who argued that our recovery plan was unwise and unnecessary. They opposed the very notion that government has a role in ending the cycle of job loss at the heart of this recession. There are those who believe that all we can do is repeat the very same policies that led us here in the first place. But I also know that this country has never responded to a crisis by sitting on the sidelines and hoping for the best.
President Obama, your response, Ha-Joon Chang.
Right. Well, no, I mean, I agree with the sentiment, but the people he put in charge of the economy, like Paul Volcker and Larry Summers, I mean, these are people who actually created this problem. You know, Volcker is, if you like, the godfather of monetarism in this country, and Larry Summers, when he was at the World Bank as the chief economist, and then when he was at the Treasury later, I mean, was going around the world preaching to other countries that they have to deregulate the financial market, open up their borders to the American and other rich country financial flows. Now, what they are doing now isn't what they were doing before, but if they have started believing in something else, they should come clean and apologize, don't you think? I mean, because these are the people with others who created these problems.
What do you think needs to be done right now?
Well, I think one important thing that this country needs to do is basically to abandon this obsession with private ownership and go for nationalizing the banks. You know, what the government is proposing now is basically we'll plug whatever gap that emerges in the banking sector, because if they go down, we go down altogether. Now, I mean, at one level it's true, but if you want to do that, you have to actually make people answer to this demand. So now that the taxpayers are paying all this money, why not actually nationalize these banks and make them public servants so that they answer to those who have paid for them?
What do you think of the debate here in the United States while you're here watching television, the whole controversy over nationalizing the banks?
Well, I think this is the legacy of, if you like, the neoliberal dominance. I mean, somehow what you guys call the N word here is a dirty word, but you know, actually in the history of capitalism, there are many countries that have run very successful economies on the basis of nationalized banking sector. For example, France until the 1990s, I mean, was basically based on nationalized banking system, and still the government has quite a lot of stake in the banking sector. Singapore, which people believe is some example of free market economics, actually in that country, more than 20% of national output is produced by nationalized companies. So
you're originally from South Korea.
That's right, yeah. Well,
what about South Korea?
Well, in South Korea too, you know, I mean, it didn't use public ownership as much as Singapore or France, but there are very successful companies like POSCO, the steel company that is now the third largest steel company in the world, was started out as a government-owned enterprise. So I think this notion that public enterprises do not work and therefore nationalization will be a disaster, I mean, it's not supported by evidence.
What about nationalization of companies like GM and Chrysler?
Well, if you are no, I mean, let's play by the capitalist logic. Yeah? If the taxpayers are paying the money, you have to nationalize them. Yeah? You know, I mean, the whole problem, is people say is that all these bankers were playing with other people's money. Yeah? So now, I mean, they are being paid by the taxpayers. it is only right that the taxpayers control these companies. Yeah? If they don't want this money and they don't want to be nationalized, they should go bankrupt.
Ha-Joon Chang, I wanted to ask you about Latin America, how leaders there are responding to the economic crisis after decades of following Western demands. Earlier this year, the World Social Forum was held in Brazil. Several Latin American presidents criticized the U.S. for exercising double standards and allowing massive state intervention in financial markets. This is Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa.
Los culpables de la crisis.
The guilty parties in this crisis try to give lessons on morality and good economic handling. The most powerful people on the planet have united to find a therapy for the dying. They're getting together, the central bankers, the representatives of large financial firms, the people primarily responsible for the crisis.
Los principales culpables de la crisis.
Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa, he's also a trained economist and was reportedly influenced by your work.
Yes, I mean, I think he has read my work, and in a number of places he has quoted me. Yes, but Rafael is the only, I mean, the most striking examples of a whole group of Latin American leaders which have abandoned neoliberalism and but seeking their own ways. I mean, you know, today, I mean, which country in Latin America really listens to the United States? I mean, only Colombia and Chile. And I mean, even Chile now has the President Bachelet, who famously joked that the reason why the United States does not have a coup d'etat is, unlike Latin America, is that it doesn't have U.S. embassy. And caused a bit of a diplomatic stir there. But now even in Paraguay, I mean, a country which was ruled by military dictator General Stroessner for 35 years has this left-wing former bishop as the president, and the whole continent has basically been drifting away from a neoliberal American strategy. And with this crisis, they'll move away even further unless America changes its approach to the continent.
One of the people you take on big time in your book is Thomas Friedman. Your first chapter, The Lexus and the Olive Tree, Revisited Myths and Facts About Globalization. We only have a minute to go, but what do you think are the myths that need to be debunked in this country?
Well, basically the myth is that America has been founded on the free market. The government has done very little. It has thrived on the free trade. But actually, if you look at the history, this is actually the country that has succeeded most with protectionist policies. This is a country which has huge industrial policy, only that is called research funding in defense industry and research funding in health research. It actually spends, in proportional terms, a lot more money than Japan or European countries in supporting research and development, thereby steering the industries into certain directions. So let's put it this way. I mean, this country has basically come to terms with what it has done. I mean, it has been haunted by this ideology that, oh, we never did anything other than free market and free trade. It's time to give that up.
Do you think that America will continue to be a leader in the world economically, or do you think this is going to fundamentally change its position?
I think in relative terms it's obviously in decline, but I mean it's still by far the single richest economy in the world. And you know, I mean, I give credit where it's due. I mean, it's the only country which became the world hegemon and created room for other countries to rise together. This was the sort of Marshall Plan days, which sadly ended in the 70s, and the U.S. became even more kind of insistent on pushing these wrong policies on the developing countries than some other countries. But you know, it has a great record, and I think the country should exploit that history and try to reinvent itself as a new leader in the world.
I want to thank you, Ha-Joon Chang, for being with us. His latest book, Bad Samaritans, The Myth of Free Trade and the Secret History of Capitalism, safe travels back to Cambridge. He's an economist there at the University of Cambridge in Britain.